You ever lie in bed at night, eyes closed, and suddenly you're living the life you've always wanted? The perfect version of yourself emerges in the darkness behind your eyelids. Your dreams are vivid, almost tangible. You can feel the warmth of that life, taste the freedom, hear the laughter. And then your alarm goes off. Your eyes open. Reality crashes in like cold water. And that beautiful life, gone, vanished the moment you returned consciousness. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to admit. For millions of people, the life they truly want only exists in their imagination. In those precious moments between sleep and waking, in daydreams during boring meetings, in fantasies while staring out windows. If this resonates with you, do me a favor right now and hit that like button, because what I'm about to share might completely change how you see the gap between your inner world and your outer reality. And subscribe, because we're diving deep into the silent battles your mind fights every single day. So let's talk about what's really happening here. Why does closing your eyes feel like opening a door to a better existence? The answer is both simpler and more complex than you think. When you close your eyes, you remove the immediate sensory data that constantly reminds you of your current circumstances. Your brain, freed from processing visual information about your actual surroundings, has bandwidth to construct something entirely different. Neuroscience tells us that imagination and perception use remarkably similar neural pathways. When you visualize your dream life, your brain lights up in patterns that mirror actually experiencing those moments. In a very real sense, when you close your eyes and imagine, your mind believes you're there. The emotions feel genuine because, to your nervous system, they are genuine. But here's where it gets tricky, and this is what keeps people trapped in a cycle of fantasy and disappointment. Your closed-eye life becomes a sanctuary, a place of retreat when reality disappoints. And reality will always disappoint when you're comparing it to a perfectly curated mental movie where you control every variable, where everyone responds exactly as you hope, where consequences don't exist and effort is optional. Think about it like this. Imagine someone spends hours every day in a virtual reality headset, living in a stunning digital paradise. Eventually, they have to take the headset off. The real world hasn't changed. It's not worse than before, but compared to the technicolor perfection they just experienced, it feels gray, heavy, difficult. That's what happens when your mental escape becomes more vivid than your actual life. You're essentially wearing an invisible VR headset every time you close your eyes and drift into fantasy. Now, before you think I'm about to tell you that imagination is bad, or that you should just accept a mediocre reality, hold on. That's not where this is going at all. The imagination isn't your enemy. In fact, it's one of the most powerful tools you possess. Every single thing humans have created started as an image in someone's mind. Buildings, technology, art, relationships, careers, entire movements began as closed-eye visions that someone decided to drag into reality. The problem isn't that you have a vision of a better life. The problem is when that vision becomes a replacement for life, instead of a blueprint for it. So how do you know which category you fall into? Ask yourself this: when you open your eyes, do you feel inspired or defeated? Do you feel energized to work toward that vision, or do you feel exhausted by the gap between here and there? Does your imagination fuel action or justify inaction? These questions matter because they reveal whether your inner world is serving you or sabotaging you. Let's get real about something that makes people uncomfortable. Some of us have become addicted to the closed-eye life. Not addicted in the dramatic sense, but in a way you get hooked on anything that provides easy emotional relief without requiring real risk. Your imagination gives you the feeling of achievement without the vulnerability of trying. It gives you the warmth of connection without the possibility of rejection. It gives you the satisfaction of success without the grinding work success demands. And your brain, which is essentially a pleasure-seeking, pain-avoiding, biological machine, starts to prefer this low-risk, high-reward setup. Why risk failure in reality when you can guarantee success in your mind? Here's the really sneaky part though. This pattern can make you feel like you're doing something productive. You're visualizing, right? You're manifesting, planning, dreaming. Entire industries have grown around telling people that thinking about what you want is somehow equivalent to working toward it. But intention without action is just fantasy. Visualization without execution is just entertainment. And the more time you spend perfecting the mental version of your life, the less time you spend building the actual version. Okay, so maybe you're recognizing yourself in this. Maybe you're feeling a bit called out right now, and that's uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort means something true just got touched. But let's talk about what you actually do about this. Because awareness without a path forward just leads to shame, and shame keeps you stuck. First, you need to understand that the gap between your closed-eye life and your open-eye life exists for everyone. Literally everyone. The people you admire, the ones who seem to have it all figured out, they have their own version of this. The difference isn't that they don't dream or imagine a better life. The difference is in what they do with that gap. Successful people, fulfilled people, they use their imagination as a compass, not a destination. They close their eyes to see where they want to go, then open them to figure out the next step. Not the whole journey, not the complete transformation, just what's immediately in front of them. This is crucial because the closed-eye life is appealing, partly because it's complete. It's finished. You imagine the end result, the final version, the happy ending. But reality doesn't work that way. Reality is incremental, messy, non-linear. Reality requires you to take imperfect action with incomplete information and tolerate the discomfort of not knowing how things will turn out. And honestly, that's terrifying for most people. We'd rather have a perfect fantasy than an imperfect reality. But here's what nobody tells you about building a life instead of just imagining one. Reality has something fantasy can never provide. It has substance. It has the unexpected joys that come from actual experience. When you take real action toward your vision, weird and wonderful things happen that you couldn't have imagined. You meet people you didn't plan for. Opportunities emerge from strange places. You discover strengths you didn't know you had. You also encounter obstacles you didn't anticipate. And yes, that's harder, but it's also where growth lives. The closed-eye life is static. But your open-eye life, when you actually engage with it, when you stop treating it as a disappointing placeholder and start treating it as raw material, it becomes dynamic. It surprises you. It changes you. Let me tell you something that might sound paradoxical. The more you invest in your real life, the less you need to escape into your imaginary one. Not because you stop dreaming, but because your actual life starts containing elements of what you've been dreaming about. The gap begins to close, not because you lowered your standards, but because you raised your actions. Here's a practical framework. Take that closed-eye vision you have, that perfect life you imagine. Now, break it down. What are the actual components? Is it freedom, connection, creative expression, financial security, impact? Once you identify the core elements, ask yourself what the tiniest possible version of each element would look like in your current life. If your closed-eye life involves creative freedom, what does 1 hour of creative work in your open-eye life look like? If it involves deep connection, what does one genuine conversation look like? If it involves adventure, what does one small risk look like? Start building micro versions of your vision into your actual days. This does 2 things. First, it trains your brain that the feelings you're chasing in fantasy can exist in reality. They won't be as intense at first. They won't be as convenient, but they'll be real. And real has a weight that fantasy lacks. Second, it creates momentum. Tiny actions compound. 1 hour of creative work leads to a project. One genuine conversation leads to a relationship. One small risk leads to confidence for bigger ones. But you have to be patient with this process, and patience is hard when you can instantly access the complete version in your mind. This is where most people give up. They try for a bit, don't see dramatic results, decide it's not working, and retreat back into the closed-eye life where everything happens easily. Don't do that. Understand that building a real life is like developing a photograph in a dark room. Remember those. Probably not if you're under 30, but bear with me. When you develop film, you dip the paper in chemicals, and at first you see nothing, just blank paper. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, shapes begin to emerge. Details appear. The image becomes clear, but only if you're patient and keep the paper in the solution long enough. Pull it out too early and you get nothing. Your real life works the same way. The actions you take today might not show visible results for weeks or months, but they're working under the surface in ways you can't see yet. The problem is your closed-eye life gives you instant gratification. You close your eyes and boom, there's your dream life in full color. Reality makes you wait, makes you work, makes you wonder if anything's actually happening. That's the test. That's what separates people who build lives they love from people who just dream about them. Now, let's address something else. What if your closed-eye life is radically different from what's practically possible? What if you imagine being a world-famous musician, but you're 45 with no musical training? What if you imagine a relationship with someone specific who doesn't feel the same way? What if your vision requires circumstances you simply cannot create? This is where wisdom comes in. There is a difference between giving up on dreams and evolving them. Sometimes the closed-eye life is showing you something true about what you need, but the specific form is wrong. You don't actually need to be a famous musician. You need creative expression and connection through art. Those things are accessible in 1,000 forms. You don't actually need that specific person. You need the qualities of love and partnership they represent in your mind. Those qualities exist in people you haven't met yet. The work is learning to distinguish between the essence of what you're craving and the particular package you've wrapped it in. Your imagination sometimes gets this wrong. It fixates on one path, one person, one outcome, but what you actually need might come through an entirely different door. This requires you to hold your vision loosely. Know what you want, work toward it, but stay open to how it manifests. Stay open to reality, surprising you with something better than you imagined, which it often does if you let it. Here's the thing that brings this all together. The life you want doesn't exist only when you close your eyes. It exists in potential, right now in your open-eye reality. But potential is invisible until action makes it visible. Every time you choose to take one real step instead of taking another mental vacation, you're collapsing potential into reality. You're pulling threads from the closed-eye life into the open-eye one. This is how people transform their lives. Not through one dramatic moment, not through perfect conditions, not through waiting until they're ready, but through the accumulated weight of small, real, imperfect actions taken consistently over time. The gap between who you are when your eyes are closed and who you are when they're open isn't permanent. It's not a life sentence. It's just information about where you've been putting your energy, and energy can be redirected, starting now. So here's my challenge to you. Tonight, when you close your eyes and that perfect vision appears, don't just enjoy it. Study it. Ask it questions. What is this trying to tell me I need? What's one tiny way I could experience a piece of this tomorrow? Then, and this is the hard part, when you open your eyes tomorrow, take that one tiny action before you allow yourself to close them and escape again. Make the trade. Fantasy time gets earned by reality work. One real step buys you the right to enjoy the vision again, guilt-free. Do this enough times, and something remarkable happens. The closed-eye life and the open-eye life start to merge. Not completely. You'll always have dreams bigger than your current reality, but the gap shrinks. Your days start containing moments that feel like your dreams used to feel. And when you close your eyes, instead of escaping, you find yourself just resting. Because your open-eye life has become something you no longer need to escape from. It's become something you're actually building, something with substance and possibility and surprise. That's when you know you've won. Not when the lives match perfectly, but when you stop needing them to. When you can appreciate the vision for what it is, a guide, an inspiration, a compass, while fully inhabiting and engaging with the messy, imperfect, real life you're actually living. The life you want isn't hiding behind your eyelids. It's waiting in the world for you to build it, one open-eyed step at a time.